What's going on, everybody? Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy. Want to wish you a very happy third day. It is Thursday, the third day, July 24th, 2025. The third practice of training camp Thursday marked for the Dallas Cowboys out in Oxnard, California. Their last before their first break. We're actually so deep into training camp now. We're knee deep, waist deep, I would even offer, into training camp here in 2025, to where the Dallas Cowboys going to have an off day. It's a big weekend for the Cowboys, but with their off day on Friday, they have their first padded practice of training camp on Sunday. And anything and everything that happens, of course, we'll keep you updated here on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. Like the video, subscribe. You'll hear my dogs barking in the background every now and then, like you do right now. My name is RJ Ochoa. As mentioned, you can follow me on any level of social media. You see the usernames, the handles right down below, but even further down in the description, we have the links to all of my social handles. If you just want to do one clickety clack, you can follow me here, there, wherever you want, everywhere. Let's go ahead and get to a recap of what went down in Oxnard, California on Thursday afternoon. So, as always, make sure to follow the people whose tweets were showing, the members of the local beat who were there in Oxnard, California, doing an amazing job, hustling, grinding, producing incredible content. Cannot recommend these people, these voices enough. Here's Joe Hoyt of the Dallas Morning News starting us off day 3 of Cowboys practice. Again, there's just apparently like a level of chaos happening around here, which is why my dogs are going crazy in and of themselves. Here we go. Micah Parsons doing some light work ahead of things. As we know, the Cowboys being silly willies. In fact, we had a short go up, had a video on my social channel. Stephen Jones did his annual interview with DallasCowboys.com. At least the interview was released on Thursday, and said the same BS about how you have to have two people who want to get this done, blah, 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 whatever. We're done hearing it, Stephen. I'd rather listen to my dogs bark and bark and bark and bark than hear Stephen Jones try to justify what the Cowboys are doing and really not doing. But Micah, not accusing. I'm not accusing Micah of faking an injury. That's not what I'm saying. I'm being completely serious there. But said earlier in the week that the reason he wasn't practicing was because he had some back tightness. If we parse through that, there's no player that is going to come out and say, yeah, I'm holding in. I'm not practicing because I don't like that I don't have my new contract. So again, not saying that Micah said this for that reason, but that's just kind of historically the way it's worked across the NFL and in sports. So doing some work ahead of practice, obviously, from a conditioning standpoint. Let's move on. This is George Pickens getting ready. There was a bit of a scare as I was putting the video together on Wednesday. George Pickens had a little bit of a scare in Oxnard. It seemed to be cramps. And as ESPN's Todd Archer noted here, all good to go on Wednesday, but no Terrence Steele. That started to kind of float around. This is Calvin Watkins, the Dallas Morning News, noting this. We did have an article go out at blogontheboys.com as practice was unfolding. It was reported to be an ankle issue for Terrence Steele, or rather that his ankle was being evaluated, looked at. So Nick Harris of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram noted that it's not viewed to be a serious thing, but so that is something that is going on with Terrence Steele at the moment. Kenneth Murray, it was revealed, along with Deron Bland, awaiting the birth of children. So our best to Kenneth Murray, to Deron Bland, to everyone involved. We're praying for happy, safe, healthy deliveries and lots of wonderful memories to come over the future. Let's keep going, though. We've got some look at the safeties. Here's George Pickens, which we're all excited to see. George Pickens is awesome. There were the quotes flying around, obviously, about the Mario brothers and all this stuff. Let's keep looking. There was an amazing George Pickens highlight. I believe this is it. This is from John Machota of The Athletic. One-handed. Look, I'm not trying to make a big deal out of a one-handed catch in a training camp practice without pads, but it's still pretty cool. And the more I think about this, right, I know we're really excited about George Pickens. I know that we look at George Pickens and what he offers, and it's very easy to see how good he's going to be for CeeDee Lamb. We understand that George Pickens is going to be good for CeeDee Lamb. That is obvious. And this is obvious as well. But George Pickens is going to be amazing for Dak Prescott. For all of you haters out there, or mouth breathers, or people who refuse to see actual reality, Dak Prescott is one of the best deep balls in the NFL. And George Pickens is really going to help him unlock this. George Pickens is really going to help this whole offense sing in a way that it hasn't, arguably, in the entire Dak Prescott era. So yes, George Pickens is absolutely going to help CeeDee Lamb, but he is really, really, really going to help Dak Prescott. And that is very exciting for the Dallas Cowboys from an overall perspective. All right, moving on back to what was happening in Oxnard, California on Thursday. Here's the Pickens highlight again. Paul Stewart, Paul's the man, noting this is going to be a fun season. At the very least, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch Pickens, obviously, on a week-in, week-out basis. Maris Liu-Fau, with no Kenneth Murray, had an opportunity at practice to have a higher level of contribution, a more sustained level of contribution. And you certainly, I mean, we've talked about how Matt Eberflus is somebody who can impact things, and how Matt Eberflus is somebody who can really have an imprint, or really make a lasting imprint relative to this defense. When I think about Matt Eberflus, I know that he is going to get the best play out of the linebackers on this team. I trust that. You should trust that. And it's easy to look at somebody like DeMarvion Overshown and be able to see how that influence is going to take hold. We obviously hope to see DeMarvion Overshown as soon as possible. But when I'm trying to examine, when I'm trying to look further at who the beneficiaries of Matt Eberflus and his linebacker whisperness could be, I think that Maris Liu-Fau is one of those names. Maris Liu-Fau had a strong second half of last year, his rookie season with the Cowboys, and with no DeMarvion Overshown for who knows how long, it stands to reason that Maris Liu-Fau is going to be one of the primary beneficiaries of what Matt Eberflus has to offer from a knowledge and a coaching standpoint. There are going to be players like that. We can see players now who we know and trust are going to be performers, top performers, et cetera, but there are going to be those who surprise us along the way, along the journey, and I think that Maris Liu-Fau is certainly one of those. Back to Oxnard on Thursday afternoon. Let's keep moving. Brevin Spanford, I think, is another name. I mean, this is, look, again, these are highlights, against air. This is not a big deal. Nobody's trying to pretend this is something like it's happening in a 2-minute drill at halftime or right before halftime of a week 8 game at Philly or something like that. Nobody is saying this, but when we think about this Cowboys offense, we're excited about the addition of George Pickens, but we also know that when you get down to the red zone, you need those big bodies. You need those big options. And Brevin Spanford is somebody who we talked a lot about last year. He was one of the Cowboys' biggest UDFA signings in terms of financial commitment that was given. And who knows what the tight end depth chart ultimately looks like, but obviously we trust Jake Ferguson to be at the very top of it. Luke Schoonmaker still, somebody who I think we need to keep an eye on. He's been talked about in a very positive way from all the way through the offseason to now. But Brevin Spanford, I think, is a name to kind of just hold on to, a name to kind of consider as, is that an option? Is he an option? We've seen the Cowboys get production out of 3 tight ends across the season. You think about Peyton Hendershot kind of playing that role a couple of years back. I definitely believe that Brevin Spanford is a name that we need to just bookmark as we obviously, work through the days of late July and early August out in camp in Oxnard, California. Let's get back to the aforementioned Oxnard and keep moving through highlights. I loved this. And by the way, shout out to Vok. Shared on social media on Thursday, hit 100,000 YouTube subscribers. So anyone who's watching this on YouTube is likely subscribed to Vok, and you should be. He's the best. He's amazing. His work, his analysis, et cetera, et cetera. My hat's off to you, Vok. Here's to the next 100,000, and here's to 1 million. I know you'll get there someday. So very, very, very well done. Vok's doing an amazing job, I think, highlighting the trench work that's happening for the Cowboys out in training camp early on at this point. And he talked here, obviously, as you can see in his post, the answer is Riley. That's Connor Riley, Dallas Cowboys offensive line coach. I know it's easy for us to look at Clayton Adams and his role and what he did in Arizona, and that it's probably going to translate, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Connor Riley is the offensive line coach, and it's great to see him obviously getting his hands on this group, because if this offensive line can click, if this offensive line can find themselves together, then everything works, right? I know that we have some questions. I know that we have some hesitations. I know that we have some reservations, maybe just because of the youth of this whole project. But if this group can find themselves as a collective in 2025, then everything else is a lot easier than it appears to be at this moment in time. Let's keep going. Here's the aforementioned Brevin Spanford again. This is Patrick Walker, DallasCowboys.com. I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to have to figure this out with my dogs. My apologies. This is the same play, as we can tell from the other angle. And again, somebody who I cannot count out, and I don't think that you should count out, Brevin Spanford playing a legitimate role in the Cowboys offense in 2025. James Houston, the newly acquired Cowboy, nice to see him getting in some work. You can see Micah Parsons there not wearing a helmet, par for the course, all this kind of stuff. Whatever. Apologies for the language here, but this was a great tweet relative to the Pickens hype that's been going around. Shout out to, of course, the great Burgers and Blitzes. Everybody knows him. Everybody loves him. But I love the disposition of this tweet, because Dak Prescott really has never had that kind of receiver, the kind of receiver that is, hey, down there somewhere. I'm just going to chuck it up and they'll go find a way to go get it. And George Pickens kind of is that dude. Let's keep going. Quarterbacks moving, et cetera, et cetera. This was awesome. Nick Harris of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram sharing this. Tyler Smith, I mean, just absolute domination. Tyler Smith is, I think that Micah Parsons is the best player on the Cowboys. Like if we evaluated, let me put it this way. If we took every player on the Cowboys and we measured how good they are at their respective job, I think that Micah Parsons is the best player on the Cowboys. I think he's better at his job than any other player on the Cowboys is at their job. That isn't shade against anybody else. I think that this is kind of common sense, though. If we went down the list in this game, I think number 2 is CeeDee Lamb. I think he's the second best player on the team relative to his job and what he has to do and how he accomplishes it. I think there's a very strong argument to be made that we will see this season that number 3 on that list is Tyler Smith. I think that Tyler Smith is going to take a massive leap in 2025 and become one of the very best, because he already is, but one of like the very best interior offensive linemen across the entire NFL. So much so that we are putting him in the same conversation relative to how he dominates his position, his world, his realm, etc., the way that CeeDee does, the way that Micah Parsons does. So 2025 belongs to Tyler Smith in a lot of ways, in my humble opinion. Let's keep moving. Let's see here. This was Damone Clark with a forced fumble. I know we've all kind of forgotten about Damone Clark. But man, I mean, another option. And the Cowboys are obviously going to need bodies down the depth chart to produce as we move throughout the season. I loved this note from Kyle Yeomans of DallasCowboys.com that George Pickens, these are Kyle's words, was blocking his ass off. Dude, this is Kyle words continue. Dude is being physical on the boundary without the ball, even after suffering the cramp yesterday. Look, I keep saying this anytime I discuss this situation. I was against the George Pickens trade. I did not trust the Cowboys to be able to handle him the way the Steelers clearly were not willing to anymore. And I keep telling you that I was against it because I want you to hold me accountable. And I'm also telling you that again so that I can say, I'm sorry. All right. I'm sorry for being wrong in the moment, because George Pickens is awesome. And the reports early on through training camp are that he is completely and totally invested. I should have believed. I should have trusted. Let's do the whole speech. I was wrong. You were right. I'm ugly. You're beautiful. I'm dumb. You're smart. I should have believed from day one. And I am here now. I've been here for a little bit, but I'm here now. And holy crap, it is so cool that George Pickens is not only producing in terms of highlight catches and things like that, but that he is all about the team, all about giving, all about doing the little things. That's really exciting. And the Cowboys deserve a lot of credit for being willing to take that chance as well. So, all right, let's keep going. Now that I've apologized, I've made matters square between all of us. Let's keep going. Jaden Blue. I know we've all kind of been wondering, like, what's going on with Jaden Blue? Is he there? Is he doing anything, et cetera, XYZ? He is, and it's nice to see. You definitely want to see some utilization, out of the backfield, but you also want to see some work in the screen game. You want, look, there's Deuce Vaughn, obviously. The running back position is open for business. Here's Jaden Blue on the screen. I knew this was coming. You've got to find a way to utilize Jaden Blue. You've got to find a way to get him in space. You've got to find a way to use these running backs in the passing game. And if that's something that Brian Schottenheimer can accomplish, then holy crap, the dude deserves a serious round of applause. Ultimately, the Cowboys now have 3 training camp practices through Oxnard. Nothing massive in terms of headlines. I think everything that we've seen and heard, etc., has been kind of predictable, right? Like, we knew there was going to be contract extension drama. We knew stupid things were going to be said. We knew the Cowboys were going to be hypocritical. We knew they weren't going to be able to stand on their business. We anticipated a bit of a hold-in situation for Micah. We obviously knew there wasn't going to be serious work. And I say that with respect, obviously, through the first few days, because they are the first few days. The first padded practice happening on Sunday. Cowboys have an off day on Friday, so it'll be nice to see them kind of ramp up and get into that. We're in the thick of it now. I mean, football happening on a daily basis with this team. And hopefully the next time something's going on, there isn't chaos around my office with my dog. So my apologies that this happened. This was my window to get this done. You know how it goes sometimes. We all just try to land the plane, and we did. So now that we have done so, make sure to subscribe here to the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. You can follow me on any level of social media. My name, as always, is RJ Ochoa. And the plane is on the ground, and soon enough will be docked, and you can unbuckle your seatbelts and get your luggage out from up above and go make your connecting flight. So thank you, everybody, for hanging out. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. I can't wait to see you soon. I can't wait to watch Happy Gilmore too. And yeah, we'll see you next time.